What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Yeah, we are actually live. We got there in the end. Just about. We got there in the end. I don't want to throw people under the bus. That's not what we do here on the channel. Obviously, the plan was to go live much earlier than we are live right now. That was initially the plan. But look, guys, I don't want to throw people under the bus. That's not the kind of vibe we have here on the channel. That's not the kind of vibe we have here amongst the presenters here on the channel. But it's all KG's fault. It's all KG's fault. He's always to blame with these kind of situations. I mean, guys, look, I've seen the comments. Look, Palmeiras says it straight away. Palmeiras says KG's fault. March UK says KG's fault. Everyone, bang, KG's fault. Everyone knows. The free seats are never wrong. That's what we need to know here on the channel, guys, because the free seats are never wrong. And of course, it was KG's fault. Of course it was KG's fault. But we are going to actually talk about Manchester United today. We are going to talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's press conference. We are going to do a match preview for Southampton versus Manchester United, which of course is the game on Sunday. We're going to get into all of that. I've got so much to talk to. This is what was frustrating me about waiting for this long, is that I've got all of this stuff to talk to, and I was talking to nobody. I was talking to the wall. Nobody was there, which is no different than my everyday life, but still, it hurt me. It hurt my feelings. So obviously, what I think we need to do is just blame KG just going forward. You all know the game. You know the situations. People are saying KG forgot the login code, KG to blame. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say. But we're not going to throw people under the bus too much. Be sure to like and subscribe so we can make today's hassles worthwhile. But we are going to talk about Southampton, Manchester now. We're going to get all that negativity out the way. And now we're going to talk a little bit about Manchester United. We are going to talk about football. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had his press conference for Southampton's for Manchester United's trip to Southampton, to St. Mary's this weekend. So there's a lot that he has spoken about, and then we're going to get into the actual match preview itself. So when it comes to the press conference first, he was asked about obviously the result last weekend. Of course, you can't ask for a much better opening to the season than Manchester United beating Leeds 5-1. It really doesn't get much better than that, does it? Talk about an excellent start to the season, especially a United that wasn't even at full strength. It's encouraging signs. So Solskjaer said it set the mood with a great start. He also made a reference or announced that Edinson Cavani is indeed back in training. Of course, he was over in South America for a while. His delay in coming back, he actually revealed, Solskjaer, the reason for Edinson Cavani, his delay coming back, which is quite interesting. So we'll touch on that. We were also asked, of course, because Rafael Varane has had 5 days of training now, what's the situation with Varane? Is Varane likely to start at the weekend against Southampton? This is what Solskjaer had to say. He said, quote, with regard to team news, that's a boost as well. Edison's joined in, Rafael's joined in, and we're getting fitter and fitter. When asked about Varane and Sancho possibly starting on Sunday, Solskjaer said, quote, you'll see on Sunday, they've worked well, they've had minutes, we've had a very good week ourselves. We'll see who's making the flight down to Southampton on Saturday. So Solskjaer is being very coy when it comes to Sancho and Varane starting possibly on Sunday. I'll give my thoughts on I've actually got a lineup. I've got a starting 11 who I think is going to start, or who I would like to see start rather, on Sunday. You can let me know yours in the live chat as well. So that was interesting. Playing it coy. I always find it funny when journalists ask coaches and managers that. Is Sancho going to be starting? Is Varane going to be starting? This isn't just a Man United thing. It's an anything. Is so-and-so going to be starting? It's very rare. It's very rare that anyone will come out and just completely announce, yep, that you're going to, this guy's going to be starting. I think Mourinho did it a couple of times. Even when he was like Chelsea manager, where he would actually name the starting 11 way before the game actually happened. But Solskjaer isn't really like that. He likes to play it coy, and that's the situation there. So we'll talk about Varane and Sancho possibly starting later on. A question was asked about Jesse Lingard and about his future. Of course, there's a lot of speculation when it comes to Jesse Lingard's future. There's been a bigger development, I would say, from West Ham renewing their interest. We've known the whole time West Ham want to sign Jesse Lingard. He was excellent for them last season. Why wouldn't West Ham want to sign Jesse Lingard? Obviously, as we get closer and closer to the end of the transfer window and the season has now started, there is, I guess, a discussion of, Is Lingard going to stay? What part does he have to play in the squad? Of course, he was just coming back from a positive COVID test as well. He had minutes in the week in that behind closed doors game against Burnley. So Solskjaer was asked about Lingard and about his future and about his priorities trying to get back into the England side, because the way that the journalist phrased it actually was that Lingard will have aspirations for playing for England and all that kind of stuff. And Solskjaer, I guess rightfully so, said, I think Jesse's first priority is to get into our team. Whenever your employer is Manchester United, that's your first priority. It always is. We together can have great moments. They'll all have to remember they're going to have to play a part if we're going to be successful. Jesse's back to fitness, played really well in the behind closed doors game, come back in good shape. He's got a big part to play. That ending part of that quote is pretty significant. That's quite significant, isn't it? He's got a big part to play. And that does go in line with those reports that are out there that say that Solskjaer does think that Lingard has a part to play in his squad. We don't know really how big a part to play. I would suggest Lingard is not going to be starting every single week. That's not going to happen. But nevertheless, he still says that he's got a part to play. So I think at this point, and we've spoken about this a lot on the channel. I've seen Flex speak a lot about this on the channel. Unless Jesse Lingard openly knocks on Solskjaer's door and says, look, Ollie, I want to go. I know that I might play some games this season. I know I might have a run in the Carabao Cup. I know I'll play maybe in the FA Cup third round, or when we do go to a lesser team in the league, or if it's a midweek game and there's a lot of rotation going on, then I know that I'm going to play. But for my career and for my footballing aspirations, I need to leave because I need to be playing more often. I think if he says that to Solskjaer, I think Solskjaer would say, you know what, you can go, as long as we get the right price, of course. But I just don't know if Jesse Lingard's done that right now. I think Lingard's hoping or hanging on or gripping on to some kind of hope that, you know what, things are going to turn around and I'll get an opportunity. Injuries will happen. Someone will drop out. People will drop off and I can stay. You can look at, I suppose, from the other side of things, that maybe Solskjaer, this is a press conference after all. It's all media manipulation here. This could be a situation where Solskjaer is saying he's got a big part to play, when in reality, he knows that's not the case. What does KG say? Ollie lies. Maybe he's trying to say to West Ham, look, we don't want to let him go. We don't want to let him go. We're going to keep him. He's got a big part to play. If you do want to sign him, give us 25 or 30 million. Give us what we've asked for. Man United play a hard bargain when it comes to, they're not very good at selling players, but they try and drive a hard bargain. And I think they are when it comes to Lingard. So you can look at that both ways. The way that I look at it is that, well, 2 weeks away, less than that, 10, 11 days away from the transfer window shutting. And there doesn't seem, whilst there are rumours and there are reports, there doesn't seem to be much development when it comes to Lingard, really. Now, Solskjaer, it's a press conference, so you've got to be asked about Paul Pogba, because, of course, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Paul Pogba, everyone talks about Paul Pogba. So he was asked about Pogba. He was asked his weekly, daily question about Paul Pogba and the contract situation, and was asked about the negotiations. Solskjaer mentioned that negotiations between Paul's representatives and the club are ongoing. He mentioned once again about his relationship with Paul Pogba, which I think is important to state. Pogba does look very happy right now. In all of his Instagram and social media posts, he looks very happy. He's arm in arm with Bruno Fernandes like he's his best mate. And every time you see Pogba training, you see a picture of him and Ollie. They obviously like each other. They've obviously got a great relationship. But he still hasn't put a pen to paper on the contract. And this is what Solskjaer said. That's negotiations with Paul's representatives and the club. Me and Paul work together every day here. We keep trying to improve. When you win games, you enjoy yourself more. And he also said, one swallow never makes a summer. So Solskjaer getting very metaphorical and poetic when it comes to Paul Pogba. I like the idea that when it comes to Paul Pogba, he's just going to maybe just be reciting poetry or reciting metaphors going forward. If that's the case, I'm very much interested to see what other phrases he's going to come up with. That's going to be very interesting. We'll take a check at the live chat quickly as well in the free seats. Fake Sonia says 20 to 25 million is enough. I'm assuming they're talking about Jesse Lingard there. Rodney says he is leaving. I don't know who that's referring to. Pogba, Lingard. Fakir says 20, 25 million can maybe finance a Ruben Neves move. We still have money. I think that is a good point. I think that is a good point when it comes to Lingard. You have to remember that, yes, we have signed Sancho. Yes, we have signed Varane. there is this general feeling that the bank is empty, and I don't think that's actually the case. I don't think the bank is well and truly empty. We know when it comes to Sancho and Varane, that spend is just over 100 million, 110 million. That's a lot of that's in installments. So we do have budget this season, but maybe not enough to get us over the line when it comes to another signing. That's why this narrative of we have to sell to buy is out there. But at the same vein, other clubs know that. Other clubs know that, and they'll drive a hard bargain when it comes to Lingard, when it comes to any player. So that's certainly interesting as well. But I think when it comes to Pogba, the thing is, with Pogba right now, my kind of mentality on it is that nothing's going to be decided this summer. He's not leaving this summer. He's not going to PSG. He's not going back to Italy. He's not going to Spain. Paul Pogba, at the end of the transfer window, will be a Manchester United player. I have no doubts about that. As far as at the end of the season, will he sign a contract? Who knows? Who knows? In my mind, I've almost kind of given up kind of discussing it, because we just don't know the answer to that question. I think there is so much yet to be written about Paul Pogba's future at Manchester United, and I do think it depends on this season. Truly, I do. I think if we are successful, or even by Christmas, if we're really going places and we've got a good run of form and suddenly the team looks good, I wouldn't be shocked in the slightest if Pogba goes, you know what, this team's going places, I'll put pen to paper. In the same vein of things, he might look in Spain and Italy going, actually, Juventus, once again, they're bad this season. And Madrid, they're not doing too great this season. Barcelona can't afford anyone. A lot can change between now and just the end of the year, let alone the end of the season. So Pogba's playing the cards close to his vest, and it's a game of poker, and it's going to take a while, I think. Now, keeping with that discussion about outgoings at Manchester United, Solskjaer was asked about players leaving the club. He mentioned Brandon Williams and Andreas Pereira leaving on loan. He also revealed that James Garner will go out on loan, and it's a more or less done deal. When it comes to Ahmad, and this is the one that I think a lot of people are interested in here, when it comes to Ahmad, there's been a lot of discussion, certainly within Manchester United circles and on social media and everywhere, about what his future looks like at Manchester United this season. A lot of discussion of, will he go out on loan? Is a loan good for him? People have been talking about Crystal Palace. I think other clubs, there was even discussion about him maybe going back to Atalanta as well, which I think would be a great move for him. But Solskjaer said that Ahmad is actually doing really well in training. He mentioned that, of course, he came back a little later after the Olympics. And what I think was certainly interesting is that Solskjaer did mention that he wouldn't be surprised, really wouldn't be surprised if Ahmad stayed at the end of the window, which is interesting. This is the quote. With Ahmad, I have to say he's doing really, really well in training. He's come back a little later after the Olympics, and now he's looking really good. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays as well. It has to be the right loan, the club way of playing. So Solskjaer is essentially saying there that he's going to be very particular if they let Ahmad go on loan. I think most people would agree a loan is probably to the benefit of Ahmad. And if it is the right club, it's like the Lingard situation, but time 10. He's not going to. He's very unlikely going to play this season. If he does play for Manchester United this season, it's going to be in cup competitions at a minimum. That's going to be the case. And in my opinion, if you've got an Atalanta or a Crystal Palace, I mean, Atalanta are a better club than Crystal Palace any day of the year. But a Crystal Palace, if they come in, why not? Maybe he can say about the club and the way of playing, etc. But that's Premier League experience. That's tough to beat. And you look at the competition that's on that right-hand side now, especially with a Jadon Sancho coming in, it's just unlikely he's going to play. I know Solskjaer said it has to be the right loan, but I don't want to be... I would hope Manchester United aren't going to be that club that are going to be picky about loan moves in the sense, I've got to be right for the player, got to be right for the club. Sometimes, a great example is Jude Bellingham, of players don't want to come to Manchester United because they know as a young player, I'm not going to play. And when they know they're not going to play, they'll go to a Dortmund or they'll go elsewhere because they know I've got a better chance of playing. The way Manchester United can counteract that is we can say, look, maybe you won't play, but we will help your development. We will find you a loan. We will do everything we can to make you a better player, to get you up to the level where you are going to play games. And having Ahmad stay at United this season just because, well, we couldn't find the right loan, I don't really cut it for me. So I think I would think Ahmad goes out on loan, especially again with those reports that other clubs are interested. Solskjaer was asked about Southampton, the opponents, of course, at the weekend. We'll touch on them, but he was asked, is it going to be another 9-0, which, of course, it's not going to be. He mentioned that was a one-off game, a special game. Of course, it had a red card in the first minute. Mentioned that Southampton are high energy, high pressing as well. So we know what to expect with them. He was asked about Raphael Varane and asked about what made him interested in signing Varane, which I love those kind of questions because, look, that is a layup. That is a layup of a question for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You have sometimes difficult questions in press conferences, and sometimes you're not sure what journalists are going to say, and they do get prepped. And when they say so-and-so from this publication, then they say, why did you want to sign Varane? You go, oh, great. That's not a difficult question at all. And I know it probably will make headlines, generate headlines and get clicks and sell papers or whatever, but it's a bit of a flat question in reality. So when asked about why he wanted to sign Varane, he said, I think if you followed football the last 10 years, and that's the reason we want to sign him. Over his career, it's no secret. We were close when he left for Real Madrid 10 years ago. Sir Alex was there speaking to them. He said, this is what he said as well. Champions League wins, World Cup wins. Everything about him is class, quick, strong, good in the air, can play with both feet. The short answer is everything about him is what you want. And I don't think he's wrong there. He mentioned about how well he's doing in training. He said that he's humble, inquisitive. He asks questions. He doesn't want to learn by mistakes in the game. He wants to learn on the training pitch. So it would appear, shockingly, I think anyone who had a brain could probably figure this out, that when you sign world-class players, it gives your club a lift because you realize, wow, I'm going to be playing with that guy. That guy's world-class and he's come to my club. One, I have to step up my game. But two, we're going places. That's ambition because people know Raphael Varane is a winner. He has won a lot during his career. You know, people like Danny Mills can talk about what they want to. Well, it's difficult to adapt to the Premier League. He's adapted to every league he's been in. He adapted in France, which he's from, obviously. Adapted in Spain pretty well. You know, we're talking about winning the league, multiple Champions Leagues and a World Cup. I have no doubts he will adapt to the Premier League fine because he is a world-class defender. So Solskjaer obviously knows the player that he's got. For me, it's the signing of the summer of any club. Because of the transfer fee. It's outrageous. And I hope he starts. I do really hope he starts at the weekend. And I think if Ole wants to show, you know, a real sort of intention to do things, I think he starts him at the weekend. But we'll touch on that in the match preview in the second half of the video today. Let's take a look rather in the live chat as well. Fake Sonia says, we want Haaland. Even Ole has said it. Cavani says, Varane just looks the part. He does. I mean, that's that unveiling last weekend. Again, reportedly, that was a Solskjaer call as well. He pushed for that, certainly. He pushed saying, look, I want Varane to be unveiled in front of a live crowd, a capacity crowd at Old Trafford. One, because it'll give the player a lift. It'll give the club a lift, the fans a lift, and the team that's just about to play a lift as well. Because you go into that stadium that's full of positive atmosphere. They're fired up. And the players as well, they're watching that in the locker room, the dressing room, whatever you want to call it. And they're realizing, man, that's a world-class player. The fans are ready for it. You're walking into that atmosphere. And if you're a Leeds player, you're like, man, that crowd suddenly feels a lot bigger because they're all fired up. That's top quality management from Solskjaer. It really was. Mathansdazo, I am the worst at pronunciation. I apologize. He says, will Varane start this weekend? I think so. I really do think so. I would, if I was the manager, which I'm not, unfortunately. When I go to sleep at night, I'm the manager in my dreams, but I'm not, unfortunately. I would start Varane. I would. Now, this is an interesting point, and this was an interesting question that was asked of Solskjaer at the press conference. He was asked about away grounds now this season, because, of course, I mentioned the capacity crowd at Old Trafford last weekend. We had fans back, and now we're going to away grounds that are going to be sold out too. Everywhere United goes, it's sold out. So we're going to go to St. Mary's at the weekend, and it's going to be a capacity crowd. It's going to be the first time they've played as well, Southampton, in front of their home fans in about 18 months. And he was asked, what difference does that make in terms of the way that Man United are going to approach the game and, of course, the way they have to manage the game? And this is actually one of the things I really like the most in this press conference by Ole, is he mentioned that obviously it's a huge difference, but last year, we won so many points from going 1-0 down. At certain points, it was actually laughable. It was kind of like a throwback to Sir Alex's time of going 1-0 down, but we know we're going to come back and win. He mentioned that we can't afford to do that this year because with the fans in the stadium, if you go 1-0 down, there isn't that room to maneuver of being able to change the game and put pressure back on them is a lot more difficult when the crowd's up. When the crowd's up because they've got 1-0 up against the big club in Manchester United, they will be on you and they will be driving their team on, spurring them on, and it becomes more difficult to break it down. The atmosphere goes up. And he even said it himself. He says, we have to start games better. That's definite. We have to manage the games better. So the away fans are heard. He mentioned that Manchester United have the best away fans in the world. And they truly do. That's not just a thing of, rah, I'm a Manchester United fan. We have the best away fans in the world. Legitimately, we have the best away fans in the world. If you've ever traveled or had the fortune to travel to a Manchester United away game, you will know that those fans they are the best. They are literally full of atmosphere, full of noise, irrespective of the result. They spur the team on, they cheer the team on. A lot of people prefer going to away games because of the atmosphere that you have at those away games. So he mentioned that we need to manage the game in terms of being able to only hear those away fans. And you do that by winning games and starting well. This is what Solskjaer said. He said, we've got the best away fans in the world, but we can only hear them if we play well and start well. It's not going to happen for the first game at St. Mary's in 18 months, but it's up to us to do that as well. So that's a great point. And I like that. I like that he is very much aware that we need to start games better because, as I mentioned, last year it was becoming a bit laughable. It was becoming a bit laughable in the sense that we were going 1-0 down, and whilst it's great that we have that ability to come back, and it was great that we have that ability to turn things around, because as someone that's grown up watching Manchester United do that, it was great to see that resilience once again. But I do agree with Ollie in the sense that in front of a capacity crowd, that's very difficult. That's very difficult, especially a team like Southampton, where that didn't start well last week and they didn't have a great end to the last season, so they want to turn things around there at the club. Solskjaer spoke about Cavani. Lots of discussion about Cavani, hasn't there, in the preseason? Why did it take so long for him to come back? He is now back training with the first team squad. Solskjaer mentioned that he always looks after himself, and he actually revealed the reason, without being too transparent, but he actually revealed the reason as to why Cavani took so long to come back. This is what Solskjaer said. Ederson's always looked after himself. Of course, he's lacking in team training, in football training, but he's been looking after himself, and you can see that. He had different reasons as to why he was late, personal reasons, but his body can tolerate a lot. It wasn't that he needed those extra days physically. He's chomping at the bit. He's ready to go, and let's see how much we can get out of him early on. So I think that kind of dispels or answers his question. Maybe it's a bit frustrating that it took this long to answer that, because a lot of people, myself included, were saying, why is it taking so long for Cavani to come back? Especially when you see other people that were playing in the Copa America or in the final of the Copa America, whether they were Brazilian or Argentinian or whoever, and they were playing in the first game of the season last week, and yet Cavani wasn't even back training at that point. And it doesn't look great from Manchester United's sort of fitness department point of view of why is it taking so long for this guy to come back? Why is he taking so long? Why aren't United managing this? Are they just letting this guy go gallivanting around South America, having a great time, sipping pina coladas? Not actually the case. In reality, Solskjaer said it was a personal issue. It wasn't a physical issue at all. And once they say stuff like that, you can't really probe anymore, really, can you? And you shouldn't anyways. And once they say, look, it was a personal issue, that was it, then you kind of have to realize, okay, he's back, he's training. I doubt he will start tomorrow, on Sunday rather. As far as being in the squad, I mean, Solskjaer did play up that he's in great physical shape. He did mention that he was lacking in football training and team training. It's a difference, though. It depends on the position. A striker, you can train for a couple of days and be put on the bench and maybe come on for the last 10 and nick a goal, especially considering what he did at St. Mary's last year. When it comes to a centre-back like Varane or anything like that, you need to take a bit of extra time, especially because you don't just bring on a centre-back for 10 minutes at the end. I wouldn't be stunned if he was on the bench, but I think considering that you're probably going to have Martial on the bench tomorrow, I don't think there is a real strong desire. We need Cavani back tomorrow because we do have options in that position. He did mention finally about Dean Henderson. Of course, Dean Henderson lost a few weeks in pre-season because he had some issues with COVID. Of course, he tested positive and then was out for a couple of extra weeks. He had long COVID or had residual issues because of that. And Solskjaer spoke about that the issue with the COVID situation is that there's still a lot that's unknown and new for everyone. That's a scary bit. But he did say that Henderson is feeling much better now. He's passed all of the tests this week. He's been back in training, not training actually with the squad, but sort of individual training, building himself up again because, of course, he did lose a few weeks. But he mentioned that Henderson has been working in the gym hard, not full team training yet with the first team, but that won't be long, probably next week. This is what Solskjaer said. He said he's training and building himself up once again because he's lost a few weeks. He's working hard in the gym, working hard on the grass. So I would expect that Henderson is back in training next week. So obviously he's not going to be starting at the weekend. I think if anything, look, the most important thing is that Henderson is well. You know, COVID is no joke. COVID is no joke. And irrespective of opinions on it, once you hear about a premier top-level athlete going down with it in terms of the residual stuff as well, that's serious stuff. That is serious stuff. And the most important thing is his health. So the fact that he's back training and doing what he's best at, and that is training and playing football, that's the most important thing there. I think the whole discussion of De Gea Henderson is a discussion for a later date, to be honest with you. And it's probably not something that I would even really want to talk about that much because it's not part of the conversation right now. So we'll wait and see. Let's see what the free seats are saying about some of these comments by Solskjaer in the press conference. Cooley says, Eddie is back. Let's go. Let's see what else you guys are saying. Fake Sonia said, if Greenwood plays like that every week, even Haaland wouldn't be missed that much. Big statements by Fake Sonia there. I think the Haaland discussion is very, very interesting. Very interesting. Yozo says, best away fans, Barner. Come on, United. Fans have confidence in our boys every game we go into, and this could be a massive season for us. With Varane, it's a huge game changer for us. Come on, boys. Yes, I like that positivity. That's the positivity we need on a Friday. That's the positivity we need on a Friday. I like that. We'll go into the match preview on the top of that. On the top of that positivity there. So obviously, Southampton away at St. Mary's on Sunday. First of all, I think before we get into the real nitty-gritty of the details here in terms of expected teams, in terms of lineups, in terms of Southampton themselves, because I do want to talk about Southampton. I know when a lot of people preview Man United games, we tend to only focus on United, but it is important to discuss the opposition, what to expect from the opposition as well. So first of all, before we get into that, I expect us to win. I expect us to win, even if we play an unchanged 11, which I don't think we will. I think if Solskjaer played that team against Leeds Sunday at Southampton at St. Mary's, I think we win. I don't think he plays that team, though. I do think he makes changes, and I expect us to win if we make changes, which I think is going to be the case. Of course, any game, it's important that we win. As we're not going to come into this game, it's important that we get a draw today. Nevertheless, look, it's important that we win because we have a really, really, really good start to the season. Sometimes when you draw one of your opening games, you go, that's annoying, but whatever. It's important that we don't lose. It's important that we win on Sunday because our fixtures are really favorable to us this year, certainly in that opening block of games before the international break. And you have to look at what's led teams to be successful in terms of challenging for a league title, which is where we want to be. I don't know if we can challenge for a league title this season. I'll be honest with you. I'm still on the fence. It's only been one game. I'm not going to be one of those people that gets carried away or anything like that. But you have to look at who's been successful and how they've been successful over the last few years in the Premier League. Whether it's City winning the league, whether it's Liverpool winning the league, whether it was Chelsea winning the league under Conte, it's all about going on winning runs. It's all about going on winning runs. Whether it's Chelsea under Conte, they broke the record. City then broke the record. Liverpool were unbeaten when they won the league for like half the season or something ridiculous like that. Winning a title nowadays is all about going on runs. And by that point, once you come to the end of your run, it's already won because nobody can keep up with that. We honestly have a chance right now to go on a run. And don't get me wrong, I know people might clip this. I know it's just one game. I know it was the opener last week. And I know it's difficult to judge when it's the first game of the season. And I'm not getting carried away. I think I'm being realistic here. I really do think I'm being realistic here because look at our fixtures. I mentioned this in the post-match stream that we did last week. Look at our fixtures. Leeds at home, tick. Won that 5-1, tick. Southampton away, winnable. All right, any of these games, actually, to be honest with you, if you're going to win a title, you would expect to win these games. Southampton away. They struggled last season. I know it's their first game at St. Mary's in about 18 months with fans, but that's a winnable game. That's an expectation to win that game. Tick. Wolves away. They're not the Wolves that they were a couple of seasons ago. They started off with a loss. I would say United should be winning that game. I know our record at Molineux is iffy at best, but still, tick. Newcastle at home. If you're Manchester United and you're not playing a team in the top 4, you expect to win games at home, especially Newcastle, tick. West Ham away. Look, West Ham, they have improved under David Moyes. I'll be honest with you there. I'll be totally honest. I'm not going to be one of those people that just bashes David Moyes because he did a terrible job at Manchester United. He wasn't the right guy for us a couple of years ago for Manchester United. But he has turned them around. But still, we won there last year. So tick, win. Villa at home. I mentioned any game at home, I want United to win. If I'm a manager, I expect us to win games at home. Tick. Everton at home. I know it's not the Everton we played in pre-season a couple of weeks ago, but they can be got at. There's no doubt about that. They can be got at. And those are the games. Those are the games we have when we go into the international break. That is a chance. And I know football isn't simple. I know you can't just win every game. It's not FIFA or an amateur mode or anything like that. But look, that's a chance to go into that first international break with a ton of momentum. A ton of momentum, which we haven't done. We haven't done that in recent years. We're always playing catch-up. Last season, we lost our opening game. And we don't have to see that anymore. I don't want to see that anymore. Let's start leading. Let's start setting some pace here. Let's start winning some games. Let's start going on runs. Let's stop this inconsistency. So I do think we have a chance to go on a run. Let's start leading games. Now, when it comes to the team selection, Hawk has just said, will Sancho start? And this is what we're going to talk about here when it comes to the team selection. And here we go. It says here, we need to capitalize on these first few games because our run-in at the end of the season is tough. Absolutely. I agree. Willington says, all tick for the next 5 games. I agree. I think it's a great run for us. Really, truly. And the issue is when you have a good run, those big games do tend to sort of block up. Those games do tend to block up at some point in the season. So you have to get ahead of it. Now, when it comes to team selection, the question I suppose then becomes, do you change a winning team? Do you change a winning team? Look, historically, you would say no, but the positive for Manchester United, I would say, is that irrespective of changing of the victory last weekend, rather, is that wasn't our full strength team. That was what was the most encouraging thing against Leeds, was that we won 5-1, and despite winning 5-1, that was not our strongest team. No Varane, Sancho was on the bench. Obviously, you haven't got Rashford. We're missing big players. We're still missing big players. We were last weekend. Obviously, the squad's much more improved. We have no Cavani as well last week too. So do you change a winning team? I would say yes. I would say yes, which moves on to the discussion of, does Raphael Varane start? 5 days of training. Obviously, he was training individually prior to even signing a deal with Manchester United. Whilst he was in quarantine, he was still training. It's not a case of people in quarantine, they just sit there. They still get on the bike. They still do exercise and all that kind of stuff. Does Varane start? If it was me, and I do have my full team selection here, which we'll say in a minute, but if it was me, I would start Varane. And I'm interested to know what all of you guys think. You can let me know in the live chat. Would you start Raphael Varane? For me, I would start him. I think just get that partnership going because it is going to take time. It is going to take time of getting. The thing is, with great centre-back partnerships, whether it was, Vidic and Ferdinand or whoever throughout the years, it's just game time. You need to play together to get that telepathic relationship of, I know what he's going to do. If he's going to push up a little bit, I'm going to maybe sit or go up together as a defensive unit. All of that, not just the centre-backs, but with the full-backs as well. It takes time to mesh that all together. So I would start Varane. I would start him. I would get that partnership going. Lindelof, it's tough. It is tough on him because, in fairness, and this would be his point of view, I would guess, is that he played well. He did play well last weekend. That goal we conceded, he can't do anything about that. It's an unbelievable goal. You never expect a right back to rocket it in from the top corner. That was what it was. And look, Lindelof got an assist. His pass to Bruno Fernandes, that's a world-class assist from a modern-day ball-playing centre-back. But I think if you've got Varane and you think he can get through that game, which I think he can, even on 5 days training, I would start him because let's get that relationship going. Let's build up that chemistry. I think the right time is now. We don't have a ton of games sort of blocked together, I don't think. So there would be enough time for recovery. And if it goes wrong, if Varane does look off it, that's why you've got substitutes, I guess. Ideally, you don't want to substitute your centre-back. But I think Ollie would have spoken to Varane. I think Ollie would have seen Varane this week. And I think he'll start. I do think he'll start. Now, that moves on to Jadon Sancho. Does Jadon Sancho start? Again, I think he starts. I think, obviously, last week, he didn't start because of 5 days training and a long period off as well. There was a delay for him coming back, irrespective of his transfer to United. I think a full week of training, plus last week as well. He did get minutes against Burnley in the week as well, and that behind closed doors friendly too. I would be quite surprised if Sancho doesn't start now, because realistically, what's the rationale now? Because if you're going to say, well, you know, he still needs more time in training, people started against Leeds last week that had less time than Sancho does now. People like McTominay or Fred, I think they maybe had like, well, again, maybe a couple of weeks, if that, less than that. So I would say that Sancho does start. Cavani, again, unlikely. He is training now. I wouldn't be shocked if he was on the bench. I wouldn't be shocked if he was on the bench, because I think he might want to spring a surprise. And Cavani, look, Solskjaer was very upfront. He keeps himself in great shape. He's in great shape. He's ready to go. A little bit of rustiness. I wouldn't be shocked. I really wouldn't be shocked. When it comes to McFred, which I know people will already be rolling their eyes at, this might be an unpopular decision. This might be people will roll their eyes at. I expect McFred to start. I really do think McTominay and Fred are going to start again. You can't. The reason I say that, and I know people will say, well, if you're playing Varane and Maguire, there's no need for the protection of the centre-back. You don't need to protect them like you do for Maguire and Lindelof. That is true. But what did Solskjaer see last week that would justify dropping McTominay and Fred? Nothing. It would be very harsh. McTominay played fantastic. He was absolutely superb. He was everywhere last week. Fred scored, which is like a lunar eclipse. That only happens very, very infrequently, every couple of years. And again, he actually scored in the week against Burnley as well. I think they'll start. Ollie likes them. And I know a lot of fans don't like them. And I know that, again, last week when they were named in the starting 11, people were outraged and going, I can't believe he started them. They played well. They won 5-1. The evidence is there. And Leeds play in a similar way to Southampton. High press, a lot of energy. And Solskjaer looks at that and goes, we need a lot of energy as well. And that's what McFred gives you. Energy and legs. And if you're saying, well, start Matic or start Donny, they don't give you the energy, in Solskjaer's eyes, certainly. But I think I agree with him here. They don't give you the energy that a McFred does, which is, I know is unpopular, but I think it would be very difficult to drop them. I think Dan James comes out because I think Sancho comes in. Dan James was fine last weekend, but it's just very apparent. The guy can run in a straight line nearly faster than anyone, but he's got the end product of a dead frog, pretty much. It's just not there. So I think Pogba starts on the left again as well. I'll give you the full lineup in a second, but I think Pogba starts on the left again. He was incredibly effective there, and I think Solskjaer's realised that. The discussion then comes in when it comes to Greenwood or Martial up front. I think you have to start Greenwood. I know Martial is still coming back. That might be the rationale that Solskjaer gives Martial, and certainly the press. I think Martial did score in the week against Burnley as well, behind closed doors. Nevertheless, I would just say that Greenwood played so well last weekend, and he looked so sharp that I would argue that you can't take Greenwood out. And I've been advocating all preseason, this guy's got to start as a striker. I don't want to see any more Mason Greenwood on the right-hand side. Mason Greenwood through the middle, that's what it's got to be. His goal last weekend against Leeds, that is the hardest goal out of any of them, because he's still got a way to go. He's still, I think, one-on-one with the defender. There's only one place he can put it, and that's in off the post and scores. He looks incredibly sharp, and he's a world-class player. A world-class player, and he's nowhere even near his peak at the moment. It's frightening. So I think Greenwood has to start on Sunday. Now, I do want to point out something that Flex mentioned as well. And by the way, shout out to Flex there. I don't know if you guys caught him on Sky Sports. What an unbelievable job. Unbelievable job that Flex did on Sky Sports Day. So mad shout out to him, representing United View there. He mentioned in, I think it was the stream he did yesterday, that he doesn't think Ollie has a free pass this year, irrespective of not signing the defensive midfielder. So essentially he was saying that just because we haven't signed that defensive midfielder or the Kieran Trippier, that isn't an excuse to say, well, we can't challenge because we didn't get them. I think that's a good point. I do think that's a good point. You look at the squad depth that we've got at this point, because it's been put on social media quite a lot. We've got multiple players in multiple positions now. Now, personally, I would prefer that squad depth to be a higher quality. Some of the players to bring in, just for me, aren't good enough for Manchester United, but we do have players in multiple positions. So I do agree with him on that point. But when it comes to the starting lineup, this is what I think it will be. De Gea in goal, Wan-Bissaka, and I know some people are talking about Wan-Bissaka. We'll move on. Maguire, Varane, Sure, I think that'll be the back four. I think we will then have McTominay and Fred. And I think in front of them, it's Pogba on the left, Bruno in the middle, Sancho on the right, and Greenwood. That's the team I think we're going to go with. I think he will stick with his tried and tested 4-2-3-1. I know people want the 4-3-3. I don't know if he thinks, and I kind of agree with him, to be honest here. I'm not this big, huge Ollie advocate, all this kind of thing, but I think it's right. An away game, the first away game of the season, in a stadium where fans haven't been in 18 months is not the right place to change formation to a 4-3-3 because you don't really know what you're going to get. If you're leaving us open, and especially a team that has a high press and they're going to have a lot of energy, even more energy because of the reaction of the crowd, that isn't the right time to change the formation. Now, if this game was at Old Trafford and we've got the support on our side and the energy on our side, then I would say, well, maybe go a bit more progressive, a bit more attacking. But let's face it, this isn't the time to be taking risks. This is the time to win games. And what he had last week was good enough to win him the game. And I think that team I've just said there, De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Varane, Shaw, McTominay, Fred, Pogba, Bruno, Sancho, Greenwood, that is more than good enough to win that game on Sunday. Now, it will be interesting because he has the tools to go with a 4-3-3 now, but I don't think he goes there on Sunday, if I'm going to be honest with you. Now, Southampton, I do want to talk about Southampton as well. We'll talk about Southampton, then we'll probably wrap it up here. But Southampton, obviously, this is a match preview talking about United and Southampton, so we've got to talk about them. Southampton lost against Everton last weekend. They actually went 1-0 up, but then just capitulated to 3-1. The goal they scored, in fairness, was Armstrong, and it was a mistake by Everton. But I've picked them to struggle a lot this season. They have lost some really influential players. They lost Vestergaard to Leicester, who I think at times was clumsy, but I think he was a solid centre-back. I do think he was good. Obviously, they've lost a ton of goals in Danny Ings going to Villa. They lost Ryan Bertrand. He went to Leicester as well on a free. Yes, they have brought in players like Adam Armstrong, like Brozier. They brought in a left-back as well for, I think, 10, 15 million. Who's that? Perud? Is that how you say his name? Yes, they brought those players in. And yes, they've just re-signed their captain, James Ward-Prowse, to a 5-year contract extension. That is true. I'm a big fan of James Ward-Prowse. I think he's the best set-piece taker in the league. Free kicks, corners, whatever it may be. I'm a big fan. I was shocked, actually, that England didn't take him to the Euros because I think you need someone that's that good on set pieces. He's that good. He is the best set-piece taker in the Premier League. Of course, him signing that contract extension, I think, is Southampton's way of trying to reassure fans that whilst all of these players are leaving, we're keeping some of our best players. I think that's what the reality is there. But given we've got James Ward-Prowse as an opponent, we know that set pieces are going to be a thing tomorrow. And that caught us out at St. Mary's last season with set pieces. And the year before that at Old Trafford, it was when Ward-Prowse did the free kick, which I felt De Gea should have saved. Obviously, the following year, we absolutely demolished them 9-0 at Old Trafford. But we know that set pieces is going to be an issue. And previously for us, in the last sort of 18 months or so, set pieces have been an issue for us. We know our frailties from set pieces last season. Southampton scored goals against us from set pieces last year. But in fairness to Solskjaer and the club, that's why they brought in Eric Ramsey as a coach. They've even said that he's going to be involved in individual training and set pieces, both offensively and defensively, because we were poor in both. We should be scoring way more from set pieces. Maguire's been scoring goals in preseason from set pieces, and he should. The guy who is like he's the best. He's great in the air, and he's great. Great header of the ball and all that kind of stuff. He hasn't scored anywhere near enough from set pieces. So we knew that offensively we should be doing better from them, but also defensively we've been poor from set pieces. So that's why we brought in Eric Ramsey. And I guess whilst he hasn't had a lot of time with the squad, Eric Ramsey, this is a good point. If people are going, we must be better because Eric Ramsey's been back in now. The proof will be in the pudding on Sunday. But in fairness to him, how long has he been with the squad with? What, a month? It's quite difficult to put those ideas in, but that's modern day football. That's modern day coaching. Managers have that little time and they get judged on that little time. So I, myself, would be disappointed if we struggled on set pieces once again on Sunday because we know what's coming. Last season, look, it was strange games against them. We were 2-0 down at halftime at St. Mary's. Cavani came on, changed the game. We win at 3-2. Great Manchester United game and a great game as a fan to watch, but I'd much rather we win at 3-0 and just don't have to do the comeback. The 9-0 at Old Trafford, to be honest, it's not even really worth talking about, to be honest with you. The reason it's not really worth talking about the 9-0 at Old Trafford because that's not going to happen tomorrow. Unless they get someone sent off in the early couple of minutes, it's not going to happen. So I tip them to struggle this season, Southampton. I truly do. The reason I say that is because of the players they've lost. And let's face it, their form at the end of last season was horrific. Absolutely horrific. You have to remember as well, this was the same club that was actually top of the league for a brief period last season. In the first couple of weeks or months, when was it, like October, they were top of the league. They were doing the whole stop the counts, all that kind of stuff as they were top of the league. And then they just lost nearly every game for the rest of the season. I think they ended up finishing 15th, Southampton, but they were looking over their shoulder for a brief time of, I can't believe we were top of the league at one point and we might get relegated. And the crazy thing is now their team is arguably worse than it was at the end of last season. So for me, my biggest thing that we need to be worried about tomorrow is set pieces. If we can manage the set pieces, not give away stupid free kicks around the box, and that we actually prepare properly for corners and free kicks as well, then I think we should be fine. As I mentioned, that team that I mentioned, where you take out James and you take out Lindelof and put in Varane and Sancho, that team is more than good enough and should be beating Southampton. And if we want to challenge this season, I know it's going to be a difficult game to go to, but let's face it, if we want to be challenging and we want to be doing better than we were last season, we need to be beating Southampton. There's no doubt about that. Now, obviously, the crowd is going to help them. And whilst I said I expect Southampton to struggle this year, Hasenhüttl was a good coach. I actually do rate him as a coach. I know he's a guy that has lost like 9-0 twice or 9-1 or whatever it was. He's a good coach. He's a guy that was runners-up in the Bundesliga for Leipzig prior to coming into Southampton. I was actually surprised Southampton were good enough to convince him to come over to the Prem. That's what money gives you. That's what the chance to manage in the Premier League gives you. I think his biggest problem is that his players just aren't good enough, especially now, given the players that they've lost. So overall, look, I expect us to win. In terms of a prediction, I think I'm going to go with 3-1. I think Greenwood scores a goal again, or possibly multiple goals. I think Bruno scores again, and I think Pogba gets another assist. That's what I'm going with. I'm going with a bit of a reduced repeat of last weekend. I've actually got as well, I've got Bruno in my fantasy team. I didn't have Pogba in my fantasy team. I might see if I can move some things around and get Pogba in my fantasy team, actually. But I had Greenwood as well. So I had a pretty good week last week when it came to teams in players rather in my fantasy team. So, yes, I'm going to go with 3-1. I think Solskjaer overall, when it came to the press conference, I think he managed it very well, it must be said. And I'm excited. Look, this is an exciting time to be a United fan. We won very convincingly last week, not with our strongest team. And now we're going into a situation this coming Sunday where we've got more players, better players available. I think it's now up to Ollie to be ruthless, shall we say, and be bold. Put Sancho in, put Varane in, and let's go out there and let's send messages. We've got a great start. Again, I really want to double down on that. The fixtures that we have available earlier on in this season, yes, we're going to get harder games to come. That's why we need to set it up now. We need to win games now. Let's go ahead of teams. Let's send messages. Let's win. So I'm going to go with 3-1. You can let me know what you think in terms of the prediction in the comments if you're watching this after being live. Be sure to smash a like on the like button too. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to go, obviously I'll be back after the game on Sunday as well. I think KG is going to be doing the match view, the watch along like he did last weekend. I'll be on the match reaction stream as well, so be sure to join me then. Thank you very much, guys, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.